Are we living in the end of days? Let's talk about it.
Okay, so I'm very misunderstood on this channel. No, I'm not a doom and gloomer. I don't quote the scriptures. I don't think that the book of Revelations is unfolding. I don't believe that we're in the end times, that the 7 trumpets are blowing, that the great tribulation is happening, and that some of us are going to be whisked away into the sky by angels or aliens or whatever the case might be. That's not me. I know if you just look at the thumbnails on my channel sometimes and you just read the titles and you just watch the first 20 seconds of videos, you might walk away thinking that I think that the end is nigh. But the fact is, I don't think that. Let's just talk about what's transpired in the past year, okay? Now, if any one of these things would have happened in isolation, we couldn't be so dramatic about it. If we had the Iranian situation, which almost escalated into World War III, happen, if that was it, then, it wouldn't be a big deal, even though it was a big deal at the time. If we had the pandemic happen just by itself and nothing else, and we were able to contain it within the first 6 months even, it wouldn't be a big deal. If we're using India as any metric with respect to how that's going, I think that we got a long road ahead. If we were just looking at the I Can't Breathe situation and the George Floyd riots, then, maybe it wouldn't be that bad if just that one thing happened. But it wasn't just that one thing, okay? It wasn't just the economy collapsing. It wasn't just the Texas power grid, even though that was, by some people's standards, not a big deal. But it was a shocker to a lot of people who are unprepared and realized how dependent they are on power, okay? Even though the whole storming of the Capitol thing and the civil unrest between the left and right and the California wildfires, if any one of those things would have happened in isolation, then we might be compelled to think, okay, just a one-off event. But I have always viewed this as a cumulative thing where you have all of these challenges that humanity faces coming to a head at the same time. Even the Suez Canal incident, as minute and benign as that might have been, had huge repercussions throughout the global markets and the supply chain, which are still being felt to this day. One tiny little fuse that gets blown can bring down the entire system. Isn't that fascinating? That's why there's this move towards decentralization, not only in terms of the financial markets, but also in terms of manufacturing. Okay, the factories are coming back to the United States, but they're not going to be manned by people. They're going to be manned by robots and 3D printers and artificial intelligence and all that stuff. So do I think that we are living in the end times? Do I believe this is the beginning of the end? Well, when I look at the situation developing in India, that tells me that this pandemic could potentially be in its infancy. What sort of Pandora's box have we opened with this virus? Time is going to tell. And if enough people get this jab, is that going to minimize the mutations that are occurring? And is this virus just going to be slept? Is it going to go to bed? Or is it going to morph into something crazy and continue to get more virulent, even though that's contrary to what viruses typically do? I understand that viruses, as they evolve, tend to become less lethal, not more lethal. Is this where it all starts to collapse? For real, okay? Does the supply chain never recover? Okay, does the price of lumber keep going up? Is this where hyperinflation actually kicks in? Because one thing we know from all of this catastrophe is that the government is never going to tell us the truth. And I don't mean that in the sense that everything that the government and the media says is lies. No, I think, on the whole, the majority of it is going to be true. But there are those deceptions, okay? And we can all refer back to the whole don't wear a mask because you don't need it issue. At that time, you could make an argument if people are saying now that if you don't wear a mask, you're putting others at risk. Well, the government told people not to wear a mask. So were they not culpable in that period of time for the suffering that they might have caused by people going around and spreading things, yes, they're going to make the argument that that stuff was needed for frontline workers more so than everybody else. Okay, even though I've questioned that argument for many other reasons before that I'm not going to get into. But what we know is that they're going to put whatever agenda or whatever they view as the priorities ahead of us. So if there was going to be hyperinflation, do you think they would ever say there's going to be hyperinflation? Of course not. If there was going to be escalating tensions in World War III, do you think they would ever say World War III was going to happen? Of course not. If there was ever going to be food shortages, do you think they're going to say there's going to be food shortages? Of course not. If there was going to be a major, and I mean major, climactic shift, which was going to cause locust swarms and pestilence the world over and cause crop failures and force a major correction in the human population, do you think that they would really tell you about it? Or would they just issue some platitudes and make some symbolic moves like some organizations that really achieve nothing towards the end? And yeah, maybe we'll let these protesters do this thing over here to make it look like we care, and corporate America will get behind it because it's the right thing to do from a marketing standpoint. But do you really think they would tell you what was going on? Of course they're not going to tell you, because they don't want to create a panic, okay? And if they do want to create a panic, usually if they want to create a panic, it seems that there's some sort of ulterior motive. And I don't mean that in the sense that there's some long game agenda to imprison the population and turn us all into, frivolous unisex consumers. Well, okay, maybe there is that. But in all seriousness, there just seems to be a lot of groupthink that goes on. If it's seen to be fashionable to do something and economically viable to do something from a marketing standpoint, from a branding standpoint, from a PR standpoint, then everybody's going to do it, and they're perpetually going to do it, even if what they're doing doesn't make a lot of scientific sense even. Okay, and let's not get into examples of that, but I think you all get where I'm kind of going with this. Now, one of the things that often has frightened me was this desire for many governments around the world to restrict and take away more rights and freedoms from individuals. And they do this under the guise, of course, of keeping everybody safe. But what I've always said is, if they really cared about the common person, if they really cared about keeping people safe, why wouldn't they be fixing all of these other issues, all these other problems in society, which are perfectly fixable? The education system is 100% fixable. Okay, the American and North American diets, which are very, very poor, is perfectly fixable. We could be feeding people healthy food. Why aren't they fixing that? Okay, why aren't they putting money and resources into doing things which are going to create great health outcomes and not force people to be more reliant on healthcare and drugs in order to basically stay alive and feed the poor lifestyle choices? If I was the governments of the world, I would recognize that, okay, there's a high probability that things are going to go wrong in the future for all the aforementioned reasons, not counting the cyberspace issue, which is only going to intensify as there are more nodes on the network, nodes being smartphones, laptops, basically access points to the internet. Any access point, a hacker will tell you, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be this big backdoor 0 day into one of the biggest corporations. All it has to be is just a little email on one person's computer, on one person's node, one person's smartwatch, just one little door that gets cracked, and from there you can open other doors. What that means is that from a cybersecurity standpoint, we become increasingly more vulnerable as time moves forward. That's just one other thing. So if I were the governments of the world, I'd be trying to position myself for this potential crap storm coming on the horizon, which 2020 and 2021 have just been a starting point for. because this is when the dominoes really do start to fall. Now, the goal of the government from this point forward is making it appear that the dominoes are not falling, if that's what's happening. Again, I'm not saying that this is 100% what's happening. It's what I think is happening based on what I can infer from what's happened in the past and the current state of things. But of course, I myself, and probably nobody, unless you have this wicked supercomputer that can calculate all the variables at once, can make any sort of concrete predictions and say that this is absolutely going to happen, because nobody knows what's going to happen. As far as I know, I mean, things could just fizzle out and we could just get back to life as usual, and scientists will continue to find solutions for our problems as they arise. That could be, but there's a certain gut feeling I have. There we go, you got me, okay? I do have a gut feeling that things are gonna go bad. I wanna know what you guys think is going to happen. I know I'm gonna get probably 25% comments quoting scriptures. I'm gonna get another 25% comments that have completely misread this video and say, see, I told you, you're just a doomer who's trying to sell stuff. And then I'm gonna get maybe 50% really deep, awesome, profound comments from all of the subscribers that I love very much. There's always a good gem in the comment section. Yeah, there's a lot of trash too, but you know, if you sift through it, you'll find some gems. So leave your comments down below. Let me know, do you think this is the beginning of the end? Is it the end of the beginning? Is it somewhere in the middle? Is everything just going to be fine and life's going to go on and we should just stop prepping altogether? Let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves. Canadian Prepper out.